This is what it looks like when I'm getting ready for my show. Get out of the shower, if I do shower. Oh, I love clean socks on my feet after a shower. Just don't like that feeling of having my feet exposed. I've bashed my toes on rocks and stuff, hiking in sandals, and slipped and had the sandals slip around underneath you. So I like having something I feel secure in on my feet. I don't like walking around in bare feet. Unless it's on the beach or something. But it just makes me self-conscious, I guess. And I don't like the feeling of things sticking on my feet. You know how you get like pick up little rocks or something sticks to your feet? I hate that feeling. Okay, so I haven't done my hair yet. Then I have to get the keef out of the refrigerator. Oh, I have some crappy weed to smoke with you today, but some great stories. So hang in there and I'll be right with you. Hello and welcome to this edition of Wake and Bake News, and I'm your host, Shampoo VTA, Kelly Davis, and how are you on this Monday, the 8th of August, 2016? I'm doing fantastic. I had a really fun weekend, but ran out of weed and had to go back to the shitty weed. That sucked. The wax was gone. Only got a gram. I miss it. But we had fun playing cards and stuff. And I went on a little adventure on Saturday. They had a hike along the Ventura River because there's a group here in Ventura called the Hillside Conservancy, which we're big fans of. And they are building hiking trails and stuff so that people in Ventura can get back out in the woods, because it's really weird to live here now. When I was a kid, everybody was in Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or camped. I mean, it was a huge camping area, Big Five, sold tons of sporting goods stuff. There was a lot of stuff going on. And, with all that California's been through and everything, with the droughts and cutbacks, with the recession and everything, that getting out to camp is just, you have to be rich now. There's an REI in Oxnard, and if you can spend $300 on a tent, yay for you. Otherwise, it's Walmart and shit. Or you order online, and there goes any revenue to the city that you're coming from. So just the whole hiking, camping thing is kind of deteriorated in this area since the 70s. It's really heartbreaking to see. People just don't get out as much. They're chicken. Anyway, they don't want to, they got their computers at home and all this kind of stuff. When I was a kid, getting out of the house was like a number one thing to do. They used to have to pull me in. Come home when the stoplights are on, the street lights. I'm like, you'll be lucky if I come home when the street lights come on. Okay, so went on this really cool hike and then went over to, this is just for fun while I'm doing a joint here. I'm trying to get this out of the threads. It gets stuck in the threads. Anyway, so then we went over to Big Lots to buy some little snacky things and stuff. Try to find some healthy snacks for our card gaming on Sunday, because we play Flex, right? And while we were there, they had all these crazy skeletal dogs and wolves and birds and stuff like that, and cats, because they had all their Halloween shit out. I went over to the gardening section looking for fertilizer. I was like, oh crap, they've already got the Halloween shit out. Here we go again. 5 minutes later, it'll all be Christmas. Gee, many crickets. It just starts up really early, doesn't it? But I caught a really funny video of those wolves. They were my husband, I had to take him over and show him. He was at the register. I'm like, no, we have to go back. I have to show you this one aisle. It's so funny. and after he saw it, he said, if I could afford it, I'd buy every last one of them and put them in my yard. So when you came up to the door, they'd all be activating and stuff. It'd be so funny. Okay, so, and then I caught some footage of a little bee that I happened to notice on my plant yesterday. So I'll show you that footage now while I get this joint ready.
This is a really smelly plant. So you can just, this shrub right here, I'm sure others will point it as you're coming down the road. If you rub it between your fingers and then smell your hands, oh, it smells so good. This reminds me of warm summer nights in Southern California. This is coastal sage right here. What's scat, you guys? What is that? Poop! Exactly. Now, I actually really love poop. I know that sounds weird, but you can learn a lot from animal droppings or scat or poop or leavings, whatever you want to call it. So I love this story that's going on right here. And again, for those in the back, don't worry, you guys will see in just a moment. But for those who can see, basically, we've got a little pile of scat here. This started off as one little piece of scat. And I'm fairly certain this is a coyote. We do have a lot of coyote that come through the property. I see their tracks in the morning. There was one piece of scat, and then the next day I came, there was another piece of scat. And then the next day, there was another piece of scat. And then the next day, some really interesting looking scat. That might actually be fox. So what I think's going on here is a turf war.
Oh, yeah.
It's either one coyote or two coyotes, maybe three, that are coming down here and saying, I want this spot. So they leave their scat. That leaves their scent. And then I love how just at the end, this fox was like, no. Hey, coyotes, this is my turf now. So this is a turf war going on here. So check this out as we head up.
That is cool. It tells a story.
Yeah, you guys will see up ahead. We did remove a really big invasive plant called a runway.
Yay! I know I said yay!
Oh, yeah.
Yay!
All right.
Get that stuff out of here. Hmm.
So what was
River that has water all year round. Sorry.
How about don't throw anything?
There you go.
Normally rivers would not be this quite green if they were flowing. This river last year was not this far. That's why it's a little green. But can you imagine how important wildlife is? Wildlife doesn't care. They still come down here to drink. We see tracks
It's just weird. It's just super creepy.
I've got a guitar pick full of keef. It's hard to spray out. Get another guitar pick full here. Tiki is singing. Tiki. There we go. Okay. I think we're ready now. Oh, no shaky hands. That's bad. Speaking of guitar picks, I saw this really great video by Rob Chapman Guitars, that was talking about stage fright. That was so educational. I really like that guy's channel. He is super cool. He's not as, I have no idea. Yeah. I mean, he's in England. I mean, you can't say whether you're a pot smoker over there really or not unless you're like an activist. But it doesn't seem that he's more the guitar guy, which is cool. Tea and coffee seems to be his deal. You know, which is cool. Nothing wrong with that. More power to him. But anyway, I enjoy his channel. Chappas. Chappas. And one day, maybe in the future, when we are able to move on from taking care of Nana, I will travel to England and I will go to his guitar shop. I don't know. That would be nice. It's going to be weird trying to travel as a stoner in the future, but I see Stony Sundays do it, so I don't believe it's so amazingly restrictive that, you know, you're like have to be scared or something. What's this Elvis thing on top of my head for? Anyway, you don't have to be scared about it, but I'm an older person. I just don't need to deal with nonsense. Bink. All right. Now we have our joint ready. And I have my crutch, which is the old, it's actually a smoke stone, see, not a crutch. But it's basically the same as a crutch. And I want to make sure to keep my guitar pick in my keef catcher so that I have it for future keefing. All right. Oh, have you seen my box? I'm sure I've shown it to you, but let's do a tour of my box. I have to flip it over so you can see it as is. Right, so I found this box at the flea market, and it already had the pot. It already had all the medical labels glued on the inside. I couldn't believe it when I looked down at the pile of junk. I was looking at somebody's old stash box. So I bought it from the dude for like $3. And he didn't know what all those stickers were or what all that shit meant. And I was like, oh, that is so mine. That is like fucking history right there. This is medical marijuana, like from the LA area and stuff. Early medical marijuana, right? So then I took the box and I turned it into my stash box and I made this lid, right? So that I have kind of like little places to put a bowl or whatever in those holes and someplace to roll. And then I made a tray on the other side too. So I decoupaged something I printed off of line and I glued it on there, and I made these little rails with some pieces of wood, and it turns upside down, fits like that, and then this fits over top of it, right? And then inside, I decoupaged 2 police officers looking at a marijuana plant in a funny way, which you can't really see there, but if you look at the bottom, I decoupaged another image of this cop looking at a pot plant really funny. Oops, I'm dropping everything. And then I just kind of keep everything scattered around a little bit in the bottom, like a poke, you know. Some deep tubes, my papers, which I don't use very much, but this is called a bat, you know, a tune bat. Some people call them bats. This is mine. And I bought that one because there used to be one of those stupid cigarette ones in here and I thought it was ugly. So I bought this one. Has nice sharp edges for digging in the weed. It should have like edges that tear, that like can like shred at the same time. So this should have like the end like some of those flashlights do, where like the defensive flashlights, you can cut somebody's eye, you know, if they attack you. It should have like serrated edges or something, so when you stick it in there and twist it, it's shredding the weed, and then it's easier to get all in there, because otherwise it has to be all pre-ground up and everything. You can't just shove a bud in there. You're using sort of this sharp edge to cut it, and it's not as effective. And then it's kind of got a spring at the bottom. Okay, you close it. So you keep your little buds in there, and then you poke it in there and just fill the tip, and then it's like one hitter and put it away, you know, for like baseball games and, you know, outings and stuff like that. That's what these were commonly used for. I have a couple of them, but I gave the plastic Rastafarian one to my brother, and I kept the cool inlaid wood one. It's an old sort of fashioned way to get high. All right. Now on to me stories. So the first thing I should do is talk about what I do here. I am a plagiarist. I mean, if you really think about it, I'm commentating on news that's off of the internet, but this is news that I have not created, not unless I have some personal insight or I'm trying to tie stories together. But really, mostly just verbatim, I'm reading directly the news to you. And they're doing the same thing. The news is very much a hall of mirrors, right? But what are they mirroring? They're mirroring local news, local newspapers, that is a dying industry, and that's a dangerous thing to have happen. So there's a great John Oliver video I'm going to show you at the end that talks about those problems. And sort of as we read along, you'll begin to see that even in the stories I'm reading, you can see some of these little problems cropping up, like misspellings or misinformation or just the way things are written. You could tell that it's just, you know, it's something that they're putting out because it's clickbait or it's free. It's easy to produce. Now, in his piece, he says it's people like me and you that refuses to pay for the news that's causing this problem. I have to agree with that. But the way that they monetize the news is stupid, okay? Because they monetize it with dumb ads that everybody, oh my God, I hate advertising. Advertising just needs to go drop off the face of the earth. But it's the only way these people get paid. So now they're trying to promote their online presence in order to compete with bloggers and people like me that are curating the news, though I'm not a big deal, right? I got like a few viewers, not a big deal, you know, not in comparison to, say, PolitiFact or some big YouTubers or something like that. So it's a small drop in the bucket in the real world. It makes me feel good as a personal individual, but in the real world, my son says, it's nothing. Okay. So along with the news story, there's also how you see things like these corporations moving in is what stories they decide to promote based on who owns the paper. Okay. And that has to do with corporate interests. Like, are there alcohol ads in these papers? Well, then they're not going to be pro-marijuana, are they? You think they're going to print a big ad for Bevmo in one instance, and then, they're going to run your story about how marijuana is better for you than alcohol? I mean, think about that, really. It just doesn't make any sense. Okay, so the first story I'm going to read to you starts to move in this direction about the issue with the alcohol companies paying for the Congress to push about this drug driving issue, right? So first we're going to go into how PolitiFact on KPBS has basically run pretty much the same fact story that some other people ran on Friday. And that is Dianne Feinstein's absolutely dead wrong about there's going to be more marijuana advertising on television if marijuana is legalized. It's a childish and stupid thing to think. And that there is some truth in what she's saying, but it's really very misrepresented. So let's look at this. KPBS.org. Political facts. Feinstein's claim about marijuana ads on primetime TV goes up in smoke. Senator Dianne Feinstein, Democrat, California, speaks with Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat, Connecticut, behind during a media availability on Capitol Hill in Washington, June 20th, 2016. She is not my favorite person. Californians will decide in November whether to legalize recreational marijuana through Proposition 64, a much-debated measure on the state's ballot. U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein, Democrat, California, who opposes Proposition 64, said a green light for the initiative could strip away advertising rules and dramatically change what's seen on TV. Proposition 64 allows marijuana smoking ads in prime time on programs with millions of children and teenagers viewing, Feinstein said on July 12th in a No on Prop 64 campaign press release. We know Proposition 64 would allow California to legally smoke pot in their homes, yards, and possibly in designated shops where it is sold and regulated, but would it also lead to marijuana ads on primetime TV, or is Feinstein blowing smoke? We decided to fact-check the senator's statement. Half-baked claim. Proposition 64 is backed by Democratic California Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom and the California Democratic Party. Recreational marijuana is already legal in Colorado, Washington, Alaska, Oregon, and Washington, D.C. Several states, in addition to California, are set to decide on legalizing pot in November. Feinstein's office did not expand on her statement, Instead, it referred us to the No on Prop 64 campaign. The campaign pointed us to the Proposition 64 chapter on advertising and marketing restrictions, specifically Section 229-151. It stated, an advertising or marketing placed in broadcast, cable, radio, print, or digital communications shall only be displayed where at least 71.6% of the audience is reasonably expected to be 21 of age or older, as determined by reliable, up-to-date audience consumption data. In other words, the same as when you see a Budweiser ad on the TV during the Super Bowl, and it becomes a news article in itself. All of that exposes children. And yet this bitch is not complaining about that. Well, because we know who paid for these ads, don't we? Don't we? So we'll finish this, and then I can read to you the WikiLeaks story about where the money is coming from that's pumping into these senators to get them to turn against marijuana legalization. And if you guess wine and alcohol, you'd be right. They are the lobby that is donating millions of dollars to basically talking points and what do you call lobbyists and stuff to push senators, Democratic senators in Congress to fight legalization because it's in the best interests of the wine industry. And there shall be a third story to explain why the wine and beer industry would be so upset. Because more and more Americans are using marijuana as it's legalized and substituting it for opioids and more dangerous substances. And those dealers are so mad. Oh my God, those legal drug dealers are so pissed because you're now cutting in on their business. If Prop 64 passes, nothing will change. Wait a minute. Claims ignore federal law. Okay, it's ridiculous. Standard, Johnson said. It only applies to the tiniest handful of shows. Claims ignores federal law. TV and legal experts say Feinstein statements ignore federal law, which classifies marijuana as an illegal drug and prohibits advertising on television. In other words, there shall be no advertising on television until it changes at the federal level. So dipwad Feinstein has shot herself in the foot, and she's not paying attention to this entire issue. I mean, she's getting ready to leave anyway, I think. But, you know, she's not really paying attention. That's why, you know, her statement is just, you know, basically talking points coming out of someone else's ass. If Prop 64 passes, nothing will change in terms of what radio and television stations can legally broadcast, said Joe Barry, president of the California Broadcasters Association. The federal government licenses the radio and television stations in California. The federal government position is that marijuana is an illegal substance, so it's illegal to advertise that substance, point blank. Barry added the situations themselves are federally licensed. The stations themselves are federally licensed, so there is a risk to the licenses of the station at license renewal. Experts said cable and satellite television services would likely be subject to similar restrictions. They point to Section 843 of the Controlled Substance Act, which specifically prohibits using communications facilities to transmit advertisements for the sale of Schedule I drugs, which includes marijuana, heroin, and ecstasy, among others. The law was passed by Congress and signed into law by President Nixon in 1970. It defines communication facilities as any and all public and private instrumentalities used or useful in the transmission of writings, signs, signals, pictures, or sounds of all kinds, and includes mail, telephone, wire, radio, and all other means of communication. Legality is a cloudy issue. Let's see. Others say the legality of advertising marijuana on television, particularly in states that have legalized drugs, remains cloudy at best. There is no Federal Communications Commission rule that prohibits such advertisements in states with legalized cannabis. Kathleen Kirby, a media lawyer based in Washington, D.C., told PolitiFact, California, in an email. The spokeswoman at the FCC could not point us to one and declined to elaborate on the subject. Kirby said several of her clients in states where pot is legal have been approached to run marijuana advertisements. I don't say no, but I counsel. Regarding the lack of clarity, Kirby told the American Bar Association in an online article. Kirby noted in the December 2015 article that all of her clients had decided to hold off on ads. She added in her email to PolitiFact, California, that federal law would need to change to make accepting such ads risk-free. The feds have much more or less signaled that they will look for the other way, but you never know with changes in administration or even changes in federal prosecutors.
no TV ads in other states. In recent years, federal drug enforcement authorities have taken a hands-off approach on the sale and cultivation of marijuana in states that have legalized and regulated the drug. That doesn't necessarily mean they'll look the other way on federal advertising rules, said Douglas Berman, a lawyer, professor at Ohio State University, and editor of the Marijuana Law, Policy, and Reform blog. A local TV station in Colorado had planned to run the nation's first marijuana TV advertisement in 2015, but backed away. Other concerns about federal rules stations have set to air any marijuana ads on television, Berman said. Those ads would be treated from a federal regulatory perspective as equivalent to if you were broadcasting ads for heroin, the law professor added. The Yes on Proposition 64 campaign filed a lawsuit in Sacramento Superior Court in early August demanding what they described as false and or misleading statements, including the claims about marijuana ads on TV at the center of this fact check, be removed from the official ballot arguments submitted by the measure's opponents. Efforts to change the federal law are underway, but it's unclear if, when, and how much the law will change. So anyway, the changes that the DEA is looking at would only legalize marijuana to the point that it could be researched and then like as a medical thing, and not just researched by suffocating monkeys with marijuana smoke and going, look, it's dangerous, Yes, if you don't breathe oxygen and only marijuana smoke, you would die. Yes, that's true. I mean, oxygen's kind of necessary for the brain of monkeys and humans. Marijuana does not take oxygen away from your brain, but if you choose to take oxygen away from their brains, they do tend to die. So yes, when they say efforts to change federal law are underway, but it's uncertain if, when, and how much of the law will change. It's because the DEA is playing their cards so close to their chest. Berman said California provisions to approve if approved through Proposition 64, could pave the way for advertising on TV, but only if the federal rules change first. It ain't happening anytime soon, he said. Certainly, it's not something that's going to automatically happen based on how California votes this fall. Our ruling, California Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein recently said that the state's pot legalization initiative allows marijuana smoking ads in primetime on programs with millions of children and teenagers watching. Proposition 64 includes a provision that marijuana advertisements shall only be displayed where at least 71.6% of the audience is reasonably expected to be 21 years of age or older. If Feinstein had said Proposition 64 helped pave the way for marijuana ads on TV, that might have been accurate. But experts say Feinstein's claims, as she stated it, is misleading. The Federal Controlled Substance Act bans TV stations from advertising illegal substances, including marijuana. There's an element of truth in Feinstein's statement. The FCC doesn't have a rules expressly prohibiting marijuana on television ads in states that legalize the drug, and federal authorities could choose to ignore the Controlled Substance Act. Still, the experts we spoke with say California's Proposition 64 will not lift the legal cloud of uncertainty by itself. Feinstein's statement goes too far. We rate her claim mostly false. Mostly false. The statement contains some elements of truth, but ignores critical facts that would give a different impression. Gee, now you have to ask yourself, she's a smart politician. Why would she be going into a claim that's mostly false? She's smart enough to know that, right? Well, the next story is going to tell us this. It's about the ching, ching, ching money train that comes from the big businesses that are threatened by the end of prohibition of marijuana.
And of course, what goes along with this whole Dianne Feinstein story, she's a congressperson. I believe that she was even on some sort of a judiciary panel, like with Grassley or something like that, who is also against marijuana legalization in his state, about drug driving and safety on the roads and what is this going to do for safety on the roads. And that now we find out is money directly coming from alcohol lobbyists, because WikiLeaks, somebody went through WikiLeaks looking for anything about marijuana and came up with their basically running ads directly targeted at senators saying that this is the talking points they want. And so guess who the senator is that's spewing this? Dianne Feinstein. And not just her, police officers are spewing the exact same story, because I also connect the story that I read from Ventura County Star about our police chief, Ken Corney. Ventura police chief becomes a face of opposition for legalization of recreational marijuana, also states the exact same facts about how Colorado has had an increased, crashes and fatalities and BS, but then contradicts himself in the exact same article by saying that there is no test for impairment. So you can't actually say those statistics are correct. All right, so let's read this.
Mint Press News. WikiLeaks. Alcohol industry bribes Congress to demonize marijuana. Newly leaked information reveals that officials in some of the top alcohol companies in America spent money on persuading members of Congress to pay attention to the alleged problem of marijuana impaired driving. Many talking points you've heard from police officers, particularly the one here in Ventura County, Ken Corney, is a direct talking point from this WikiLeaks. It's directly a talking point from that. When one compares the effects of marijuana to alcohol, there really is no competition to begin with. Alcohol is responsible for approximately 88,000 deaths in the United States each year, and marijuana 0. In addition, people can die from overdoses on alcohol, but it's nearly impossible with marijuana. Salon relays that while alcohol use damages people's brains, marijuana use does not. As a matter of fact, it might help to repair your brain from the damage that those other drugs do. So if you quit those drugs and start marijuana, you could actually repair yourself from the damage, if it's not too late, that you've done to yourself with fucking weed. But I'm not a doctor, and none of this is scientific because our government is dragging its fat fucking ass. Ugh. Fat, fucking overfed, fucking corrupt as shit ass. All right. So, of course, we're not saying smoking isn't likely to eventually take a toll in your lungs. No, it doesn't. But toking the herb has been found to be far less detrimental to one's bodily health than regular consuming alcohol. No, as a matter of fact, studies have shown that marijuana smoking does not damage your health or your lungs at all. And I am absolutely proof of that because I've been smoking marijuana for 30 years. I've been smoking resin, marijuana. I've scraped bongs, pipes made of brass, wood, every fucking thing else on earth. And I am not in the kind of physical shape that my family was when they smoked cigarettes back in the fucking 50s and 60s and 70s, which I watched through the 60s and 70s. And then I watched their health go to shit, and them spitting out big, huge brown loogies every morning and hacking and coughing. And I don't do any of that. And I smoke tons of pot, and not good pot either. Shitty pot. So this story is, about it harming your lungs. Don't even listen to it. That's a fucking straight up lie. If this was harming my lungs, I would have quit it long ago. I am dead set against smoking cigarettes because that shit harms your lungs. If I thought this did, it would have been dropped it's a lot easier to quit this than fucking smoking cigarettes. Don't listen to those fucking lies. Okay, it's also pertinent to note that, according to research, alcohol is by far a more addictive substance. Sadly, the average individual in America has not been informed of these facts and still believes that marijuana is a gateway drug to harder substances down the road. This is mainly because the U.S. government has blatantly lied about cannabis and its multitude of use for decades. The widespread use of cannabis as a medicine can be traced back millennia, where early Chinese doctors used the herb as an anesthetic by reducing the plant powder and mixing it with wine and administering before surgery. In Egypt, the plant was utilized to treat a range of illnesses, including hemorrhoids, and in India, cannabis was commonly relied upon to treat a variety of ailments, including insomnia, headaches, GI disorders, and pain. Until the early 1900s, in the United States, it was still considered perfectly acceptable to grow and harvest cannabis. Things took a turn for the worse, however, when fears of the herb aroused during the Great Depression and marijuana was banned in over 20 states. They kind of like skip past that, but they do give a link. I'm going to check this link to make sure that they are given the right story on this. Domestic production, what the fuck? Get your ass out of here. Of hemp, Pure Food Act. Oh, so they're giving you fear of marijuana during the Great Depression, massive unemployment, increased public resentment and fear of Mexican immigrants, isolating public and government concerns about the problem of marijuana. This instigated a flurry of research which linked the use of marijuana with violence, crime, and other socially deviant behavior, primarily committed by racial inferiors or underclass communities. By 1931, 29 states had outlawed marijuana. So good. They do go into the fact that it's totally racist. Excellent. Okay. That's good to know. Because I don't like it if they leave that argument behind. No, this entire thing was literally like members of my family in West Virginia arguing with them, you know, about how Mexicans were coming to take their jobs. And this was the 1970s. Or the Chinese or the Japanese were destroying our industries because they're micronizing everything and they're making these small electronics and we're all going to suffer for it. My family was not necessarily the brightest fucking crayon in the box. And a lot of it had to do with listening to the bullshit that the government spewed forth and being afraid. They would have been a lot more intelligent if they didn't give in to the fucking fear all the goddamn time. And the lies. But I mean, I can't help that my family was filled with suckers. Patriotic suckers. Ignoring the fact that the Declaration of Independence was drafted on hemp paper and that the cannabis plant can be used for a number of applications, not limited to industrial, clothes, and medicine. It is still a herb that more often than not is denounced by mainstream media. It's called marijuana, and especially with the H spelling, it's the old sort of racist version of that, right? Because they had to teach white people how to say the J as an H. It's marijuana. Marijuana. And Dianne Feinstein said that in her last Senate panel about drunk driving or marijuana legalization or some bullshit she was on with this Grassley guy, I think it was, and she literally used the extremely racist version, not marijuana, marijuana. She really emphasized that H. That is a dog whistle for racists. It used to be called cannabis until these racists got a hold of it. So every news media outlet and every politician that uses the word marijuana, including me, marijuana, it's a racist word. You have a racist, basically, phallic image in your mouth. There's a phallus in your mouth. It's called racism. Every time you use the word marijuana, that phallus is in your mouth. Every politician, every newspaper that uses the word has a phallus of prohibition in its mouth, because that was a word that was invented specifically for prohibition. Could this, wait a second. Okay, ignoring the facts of the Declaration of Independence was printed on hemp, and that there's a number of uses for it medically and blah, 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 not limited to industrial cloth and medicine, it is still an herb that more often than not is demonized by mainstream media. That's another story we're going to get into. I'm going to talk a little bit about how John Oliver touched on what I've noticed with the mainstream media, and that is that newspapers across the country are failing. They are being purchased by big, media publishing companies, and they are basically being turned into little robots for the media publishing companies in larger cities and other parts of the United States. And they puppeteer your home paper. Have you noticed that your home paper has basically gone to shit recently? It got shinier. It got more, the web page got more shiny, but now there's nothing but police blotters, misinformation, or advertisements all over the front page. You have joined us in being bought out by big corporations that aren't interested in spreading any kind of information. Prepare for a heyday of local government corruption. Newspapers demonizing marijuana, being purchased by larger companies, and ignoring local corruption. Yep, that's what you're in for in the future. Could this possibly be a result of the alcohol industry bribing officials to discredit and trash the herb? Alcohol officials, alcohol companies that take out ads in every newspaper and every television. Yeah, think about that. How much advertising do they pay for? So if they don't like another product that threatens their business, don't you think that the news shows on that same station that advertises alcohol or shows the Super Bowl or something like that is going to just magically start whispering this little shit about marijuana? Well, of course they do. The pussy's got a bad fucking business model. They know it, right? So instead of fixing their business model and competing like adults, like people with testicles. I don't know how to describe it. Men, adults, humans, leadership, They're wimps, dumbasses, dipshits, cowards, and cunts. Yes, I will use that word for you. I like that word. Since I'm a female, I can use it. To me, I see it from the opposite side. I have this. It is a magical portal that creates humans. I am not at all annoyed by that word. Many men are, which I found to be very interesting. I think it's a guilt trip. Don't feel bad if you use the word. You're not offending me. I'm proud of mine. So these guys are cunts. And instead of dealing with their shitty business model, where they are selling something that is a drug that gets people addicted and kills them, just like the cigarette industry, and instead of dealing with that business model, like how the cigarette industry could have turned to vaporizers and, not been absolutely devastated by regulation, the alcohol industry is going to be the same kind of derp. The same kind of derp. Watch them rail against something that is easily going to beat their ass in the comparison test. All you have to do is have one person drink and one person smoke pot, and let's see which one's under the table puking first. Let's see which one ends up in a fight with their wife. Let's play a game. Let's compare and contrast. That's what they don't want. That's why they have to do this. They damn well know they're in trouble. All right. So are they discrediting and trashing the herb according to the exposed information by WikiLeaks? That's exactly the case. Recently, a blogger for the cannabis industry website, marijuana.com, dug through hundreds of leaked DNC emails for any reference to the misunderstood herb. What they found was in the May 24, 2016 edition of Huddle, which is a daily newspaper for Capitol Hill Insider produced by the Politico website, reported the issue included a paid advertisement from the Wine and Spirits Wholesalers of America, or WAWA, or WSWA. A portion follows. While neutral on the issue of legalization, yes, they're neutral. While neutral on the issue of legalization, WSWA believes states that legalize marijuana need to ensure appropriate and effective regulations are enacted to protect the public from the dangers associated with the abuse and misuse of marijuana. In the years since the states legalized medicinal use, Colorado law enforcement officials have documented a significant increase in traffic fatalities in which drivers test positive for marijuana. Congress should fully fund Section 408 of the FAST Act, PL 114 and 94, in the FY 2017 appropriations process to document the prevalence of marijuana impaired driving online impairment standards. Outline impairment standards and determine driving impairment detection methods. In addition to appearing on the WikiLeaks website, that particular bit of information can be found on Inbox Cart, a website that achieves a newsletter, archives a newsletter. However, because the WSWA statement does not appear with the text of that issue of the Huddle archived on Politico, it seems the advertisement and sponsorship credit seems to have only appeared in the version sent directly to the inboxes of Congress members and Beltway insiders. And don't think these bitches don't know. We're going to give you money because this is threatening our business. And you bet them little fucking congressmen read that and go, yes, I will take your money, and I will spew forth your bullshit. Yeah. You know that's what the fuck is going on. Now you know. Dianne Feinstein. Now you know about her. Hey, gun industry. Hey, gun owners. You don't like her either. And marijuana just gave you a big fat present. What are you going to do about it? You and I are not friends. I am for, gun regulations, along with Dianne Feinstein. But she is my enemy, and she is your enemy. Therefore, we are now friends. And I will still get gun regulations, though they shall be reasonable. I don't give a shit about your guns. I'm not interested in taking your fucking gun. What the fuck am I going to do with your goddamn gun? A big pile of guns. What are we going to do with that shit? Turn it into a playground equipment? What the fuck do you think we're going to do with that shit? Sell it to third world countries? You don't like Dianne Feinstein, and neither do I, and we both have damn good reasons not to like her. You may have a damn good reason not to like me. That is for you to do something about. We will hash that out on that bridge when we come to it together as warriors on the playing field. But this bitch is a bitch that needs to be taken down by both sides. According to High Times, the government will conduct a year-long investigation and then make recommendations, including for an impairment standard for driving under the influence of marijuana as required by the Fixing America's Surface Transportation FAST Act, which President Obama signed last December. In a press release, the WSWA said the following about the regulation. There is currently no scientific consensus regarding the level at which marijuana consumption impairs a driver and no effective way to measure this impairment in the field. This is problematic for law enforcement, who, in contrast, yes, okay, can quickly and effectively establish a scientifically and legally supported measure for alcohol impairment. Now let's go quickly because I'm going to skewer this fucker. Let's just go. Boom, boom. Did I hit the, oh, I don't have like the, Where is he? He loves to have his picture taken. And I'm going to stop this. Well, let's take a look here. We have this article posted May 31st, 2016 about our local police chief, Ventura Police Chief Ken Corney, who is also the head of the Police Association here in California and loves to have his photograph taken because he's a fucking egotist, in my opinion, if you take a look at the fucking pictures. He thinks he's fucking John Wayne. Anyway, that's a personal thing. So, down here, he talks exactly about intoxication on the roads. Carney also cited numerous studies showing an increase in emergency room use by those intoxicated by marijuana in Colorado since the drug became legal there. He also cited a recent traffic study, safety study completed by the American Automobile Association. The study showed fatal crashes involving motorists who recently used marijuana doubled in Washington after the state legalized marijuana in late 2012. The study found a percentage of motorists involved in fatal crashes went from 8 to 17% from 2013 to 2014. Skewed numbers, because in the exact same article, down further below, he admits that there is no test for impairment. It's not perfect. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Let me get to this. Oh, here we go. No, across California. Corney also worries about how law enforcement officers are going to enforce laws that prohibit motorists from driving while intoxicated. Noting that, unlike alcohol, there is no significantly recognized test to administer to drivers suspected of being under the influence of marijuana. Such a test may come in 5 or more years, but it is not here. Really? Then how can you say that the AAA in Washington was able to prove that there is higher rates of crashes? Because in the first part it says Corney also cites numerous studies showing an increase in emergency room use by those intoxicated by marijuana and automobile crashes. Now, how can you have those two things at the same time, Ken? I don't think I want this guy to be police chief anymore if he can't figure out he just screwed himself in the ass in one article. Can we please hire someone who's not an idiot and a PR expert? So amazingly aggravating dealing with the derp, and the derp is paid for by alcohol companies, because notice that is the exact same talking points that Dianne Feinstein is pushing. Hello, are we beginning to trace all the connections here? And how long until we end up right at President Obama? I'm starting to look at him. How much are they paying you, pal? How much are they lobbying you? So, there is currently no scientific consensus regarding the level at which marijuana consumption impairs driving and no effective way to measure this impairment in the field. This is problematic for law enforcement, who is, in contrast, can quickly and effectively establish a scientific and legally supported measure of alcohol impairment. Yes, let's all stop the wheels of progress because the police will be inconvenienced. You know how we used to figure out how people were drunk driving before? It was called police observation. And then they would go into a courtroom and they would explain how they observed the actions of the driver, and it proved to him that he was under the influence, and testing later would prove that. Because they couldn't do a field sobriety test. They had to bring them in to do a test because the shit was so huge. The testing's very simple. If you've got the amount of alcohol in your body that is equal to the amount that is going to make you stupid, then, all they have to do is figure out how much you're dying. And marijuana is not a poison, and alcohol is. You're basically measuring how much poison's in a person's body, and therefore saying when a person is poisoned this much, they have blah, blah, blah reaction, and everybody pretty much has it the same. When you starve them of oxygen, they die. Maybe some die quicker than others, but they pretty much die at the same rate, and that's how our field sobriety fucking tests work. They're testing how much of that shot of alcohol is still in your bloodstream, dummy. And if you've got that in there, that poison, then they figure out how much your body is reacting to it. Therefore, you're intoxicated. Alcohol and marijuana are not the same thing. Why do you think alcohol companies want this to go away so bad? Many believe that the alcohol industry is aware that as recreational use of marijuana becomes legal and less taboo, more people are likely to opt for the herb rather than sacrifice their health and sanity of mind with spirits. This will lead to diminishing profits for beer, wine, and liquor manufacturers and sellers. Looking at you, Napa Valley in California. Looking at you. You that have big time restrictions on dispensaries. Yeah, that's right. I also know that you bitches had a big meeting, and this was number one on your fucking agenda at your meeting was what is going to happen with marijuana legalization to the wine industry in California. Yeah, I also read that story several months ago. Bitch. I got you on fleek. In result, the industry is doing whatever it can to impede cannabis legalization. Something Morgan Fox, the communications director of the Marijuana Policy Project, says it should be wary of doing, Fox says. No one should be driving while impaired by marijuana, and we should certainly be doing more research into all aspects of the substance, including its impact on driving. However, given that driving under the influence of marijuana is already illegal and that the existing research shows marijuana effects on driving ability is significantly less than alcohol, it is difficult to see a legitimate reason for the alcohol industry to take up this issue. They would be better to fund research on how to decrease drunk driving. Well, I mean, but that would be like saying that the pot is calling the kettle black, or the kettle is calling the pot black, I guess would be the reverse, huh? No, these guys are scum. And it isn't just them. It's big pharma, it's police unions, it's prison unions. Anybody that is against the end of prohibition right now is a crook that is financially tied to it in some way. And this is marijuana is literally a bullshit detector. If you put it on a stick and pointed it at a cop, he would react in a way that would be very educational to you about what his position of your freedoms are. Suddenly you'd find out you're not so free. And you would have a lot of things said to you that would really surprise you at how shockingly stupid these people are. And the dumb shit that cascades out of their mouth when they think that you're a lowlife and you have no recourse. Without question, the destruction of roads and highways in the U.S. is a crucial issue. And marijuana could actually pay for, like, the highways. And maybe the highways being prepared for self-driving cars. And when self-driving cars comes, DUIs will be a thing of the past, along with police chases and people hitting your kid on the side of the road and then getting away with it because there's not enough cops to fucking go after them anymore. Self-driving cars and legal marijuana is the future I look forward to. And the alcohol industry is the last motherfuckers on earth that are going to stand in the way of that. The last. Without question, the destruction of roads and highways in the U.S. is a critical issue. But the topic of marijuana impaired driving is vastly misunderstood. For example, Colorado has witnessed an increase in fatalities since the herb was legalized in 2012. But the increase in deaths is consistent with the national trend and is more than likely related to low oil prices and the influx of migrants to the state. And the WSWA failed to mention that in 2011, a study found a reduction in traffic fatalities in states that had legalized medical marijuana. They've also found that there is a reduced use of opioids amongst patients that have chosen marijuana instead of opioids. That is why Big Pharma is also on board with this. Marijuana is the keystone. Pull this, and the Jenga tower of evil falls down. Why do you think something so stupid and simple has been insanely villainized? Now, to switch gears real quick and kind of go back to the newspaper issue, here is a story coming out of a Seattle paper about how a pot shop owner and police worked together to stop a very big crime in their area. But this is not going to be paid attention to. It is not going to be played up because it hasn't been turned into clickbait yet. You could easily turn it into clickbait by making the headline different or something like that. But it may not be always that they are for prohibition. It may be that this is just not interestingly enough, an interesting enough story to run, even though it exactly illustrates what I've been saying, is that when prohibition's gone, you have the police and people working together than being adversaries. Now, in states where prohibition no longer exists, as I've commented below, and you can see my comment on this story, stoners and police work together to make their communities safer. But in prohibition places, like here in Ventura County, where the police are about as smart as a pea, in my opinion, pea brain, you see what I'm saying? They do not understand that somebody like me should not be railing against local police. I should be assisting them. And I should be one of the people, looking out to help make my community better. But they have decided to make a normal person into not necessarily an enemy, but an advocate for something that they are against. This is their choice. They're doing this all by their own action. They create their own living hell. Greed, corruption, it's all the same. It always ends the same. It's the old story. So let's read about what happens in a legal place when the police and stoners cooperate to capture criminals. Pot store worker watches store video, tips police to robbery. Notice how short, it's only a couple of, not even a paragraph, because it's a simple story, and that's the way it always should be. Prohibition stories just take so long to explain how the police did nothing and allowed the gangs to proliferate and actually in many ways participated in some of the criminal activity by taking money from the gangs or drugs and keeping it for themselves, because it's all just too easy to become corrupt now, huh? Those stories, they take up many, many paragraphs on a page to explain the twisted nightmare that our legal system has become. But when legalization comes and prohibition goes away, look, a story only takes one paragraph to explain, and boom, boom, it's over. While stories here in the Ventura County Star explaining the arguments over legalization take up entire pages. Because you got to talk a lot of shit in order to talk prohibition. You got to spew a lot of crap. It is a tangled web they weave. Pot store worker watches store video, tips police to robbery. An employee at the Seattle marijuana store watching a facility security camera system from home, probably from his phone, while he was hunting, Pokemon, foiled a robbery attempt after seeing armed suspects entering the facility. Police say the employee contacted them after the two masked suspects entered the North Seattle store Sunday night. Arriving officers were told the suspects were armed and tying up employees. Police surrounded the business and arrested the suspects when they exited the front entrance carrying large duffel bags and handguns. A handgun was recovered from the scene. The employees of the business were able to free themselves and had run out the back, another door. I'm assuming a back door. No injuries were reported. The two suspects, ages 36 and 47, were booked into King County Jail for investigation of robbery. Simple. Simple. Good bust for the police. They even got a handgun. They got two armed robbers who were tying people up, could have taken hostages, could have gone badly, could have tried to do some kind of ridiculous SWAT maneuver on the building, but instead, because of simple communication and trust between the store owner of a marijuana store and the police, he could just say, oh yeah, they're coming out the front door now. They've got the duffel bags. You'll be able to take them in the parking lot. Easy peasy, pepper fucking cheesy. So much different than when it happens in Santa Ana and those said same security cameras catch the police stealing from the store and destroying things instead of imbecilic criminals.
My friend Bruce gave me this smoke stone. Because he got one years ago. You know, he's an old time. He was in Vietnam, you know. And he said this is the way that everybody always used to something. What the hell is going on with my computer now? Things are going black. What the heck? What's that? There's things happening. What the hell's going on now? Bizarre. Stop doing that. Okay, so the next story after that is the share of Americans that are currently using marijuana has increased. And they really think that what it's about is the fact that more people are admitting, more people are coming out of the closet like I did and saying, no, instead of, I used to use marijuana, which used to be my line, now I'm saying, no, I'm a current marijuana user. Because before you didn't admit for anything on fucking earth. That's how you get people to be, normal people to be adversarial with them, is you create some stupid lie they have to tell in order to protect themselves. And it then suddenly it gives you the right to go and invade their privacy and break their constitutional rights and all kinds of other stuff, and then cause the rest of the public to become afraid of them and divide and conquer, basically. It's like super evil behavior. Yep, everything's going poopy here. Oh, that's okay. That's why we load everything on Tumblr. Easy peasy, pepper cheesy. All right. So my last story is this one about John. Well, is that true? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Share of Americans who admit current pot use, Kelly, you totally forgot, use nearly doubles in 3 years. Okay. This is like this huge story that broke today.
And what is it that big alcohol, big pharma, police unions, and police associations across the country, the DEA, what is it do they fear? They fear that they're going to see their old way of getting money go the fuck away. And it looks like it's too late. 13% now say they were current consumers. They said they were current consumers, really. I figured that they would have tried it. These are 13% said they're current consumers. Okay, share of Americans who admit current pot use nearly doubles in 3 years. In the latest Gallup survey, 13% said they are current consumers, up from 7% in 2013. Many, I'm sure, were able to come out and say that openly. But on the other hand, think about this. Who's fighting this? Opioid companies. So how many of these people are using less opioids and opting for a less dangerous drug? Alcohol companies. How many of these people are drinking less and opting for a less dangerous drug? Think about this. The share of American adults who admit to being pot smokers has nearly doubled in the last few years, from 7% in 2013 to 13% this year, according to the Gallup poll numbers released today. The ongoing collapse of marijuana prohibition, which began with ballot initiative approved in November 2012, probably has something to do with that, although it's not clear how much of the increase is due to rising cannabis consumption and how much greater candor. In other words, people are more willing, like me, to come out of the closet and say, hello, I'm a marijuana smoker, much like what happened with gay marriage. And you bitches that try to keep us in the closet, fuck you. Fuck you and the horse you rode in on. You carpet-bagging piece of shit. Gallup noted that states' willingness to legalize marijuana could be a reason for the uptick in the percentage of Americans who say they smoke marijuana, regardless of whether it is legal in their particular state. As legal and social tolerances of marijuana increases, people may be more likely to use it, but they also may be more likely to admit using it. Notably, the share of Gallup respondents who say they have ever tried marijuana rose less dramatically, from 38% in 2013 to 43% in 2016 than the share who say they smoked marijuana currently, a touchier question. The rate of current use in the 2016 Gallup poll is the same as the rate in the past year use. In the 2014 National Survey on Drug Use and Health, NSDUH. Does it really say NSDUH? And it's duh, which includes teenagers as well as adults. The results from the 2015 NSDUH should be available next month. But so far, the post-2012 increase in past year use has been relatively small, less than 1 percentage point between 2013 and 2014. Combining results from the 2013 and 2105 and 2016, what? 2105? I think they mean 2015. Wow, Gallup's able to take, you know what this means, what that number actually means? That goes to the John Oliver story about how, and I'm going to talk about that too at the end of my show today, how big corporations are buying up these small newspapers or newspapers that are failing. And so they're in a rush to get out news, or they're having robots help them write the news. And what happens is mistakes are made. There's not as many editors anymore. The staff is halved. And that's why you can get away with ponying the news with fake stories, fake corporate executive interviews, and all kinds of other stuff like the yes men do, because they've opened themselves up to fraud now because they're not fact checking like they used to. So simple mistakes like that. I also saw recently a headline that said that dabs are the new cocaine of marijuana. I think it meant cocaine. But because there's no more fact checking, there's no more, you're not paying an editor to, and they're making them write all these crazy blog posts and everything, and, write only about what, the reader wants to hear kind of stuff. They make simple mistakes like this. So it looks like Gallup is able to do a poll from the year 2105, which I'd be fascinated to know how that poll turns out. How many people are using marijuana in 2105? Okay, so we'll skip back that simple mistake, but skip past it. But what an interesting moment right there. It's like, yep, and there's more evidence of what's going on with the news media lately. Big corporations, they're conglomerating or something. Like Gannett is buying local news and shitting all over it, basically. Combining results from 2013, I'm assuming they mean 2015 and 2016, Gallup found that the rate of current use was highest amongst 18 to 29-year-olds, 19%. The lowest among the 65 or older, 3%. Lifetime use was most common among respondents in between, about half of whom said they have tried marijuana. Use was also related to religiosity. Just 2% of respondents who go to church every week reported current marijuana use, compared to 14% of those who never or rarely attend religious services. How interesting that the people that are more atheist actually have more faith in God than the people that attend church. Because the way I was raised as a Lutheran, you don't have fear of God's plan. You don't question it. That's a sin. It is a sin to think that God would ever put something in the world that would harm you, purposely. God loves you. You're taught that in the Bible. That's part of my journey. Look at the birds in the field. They neither toil nor they sweat, because the Lord provides. What the fuck do you think the birds are eating? Hemp seed, you moron. What the fuck do you think the birds are eating? What the fuck do you think the Lord's talking about there? Religious people. God. The one group that will do their best to keep you away from your actual religion is religious leaders. Religious groups are the worst representations for God in heaven. The worst. The worst. They have the most fear, so therefore they sin. Because if they believed, they wouldn't be afraid. That's the way I was raised as a Lutheran. If you're afraid, it's a sin. They're always afraid. Why do you think they're voting for Donald Trump? Not the religious ones, but the feared ones. You know what I mean? Fear is a sin. The overall percentage of adults who say they have tried marijuana has risen more than tenfold since the late 1960s, from 4% to in 1969 to 43% last year. Meanwhile, supporters for legalizing marijuana rose from 12% in 1969 to 58% last year. Really, if you look at these charts, you'll see that in 1973, actually, the attitude started to change towards marijuana. And then the crackdowns and insanity and the height of prohibition happened, and we lied, just like I did. I spent 30 years lying. Oh, I used to use marijuana. I remember you saying that all the time. Oh, well, I used to use marijuana. I used to. Long time ago. Not now. Not now, of course. That was a fat lie. It's prohibition. It gives you skewed numbers. If you're a leader, don't make rules that make the people under you lie to you. It's just, a thought. It would help you to get better information about what's going on. That way you wouldn't end up in this ridiculous position that prohibitionists find themselves in now, because they basically had a bunch of people telling them exactly what the fuck they wanted to hear. I know I did. And probably so did you.
Now, what I'd be interested in seeing is how many people that, admit to smoking marijuana, how do they still use opioids? Do they use less alcohol? Are they using this as a substitute for much more dangerous drugs, which would go entirely to why alcohol and Big Pharma is reacting the way they are? Police, we understand. For them, it's a cash cow, right? They get to actually rob from people and just go, it was a marijuana bust. They had guns, even though it was a pink, rifle for their kid to go hunting with. They're like, illicit guns, You know what I mean? It's theater. It's all theater. Anyway, here it shows with those numbers that more and more people are having this experience. They realize that all of that is just trumped up nonsense. Okay, so now my last story, which I was anxious to get to, is this one from John Oliver about the news media and the newspapers. Exactly what I was talking about with our newspaper this summer, that there was weird shit going on. Suddenly, there were fake stories everywhere about marijuana. There were stories about, DEA agents spilling the beans on legalization happening August 1st, which came and went and was not true. Okay. There are weird stories about how the UN is going to legalize all drugs that the LA Times runs with, and yet turns out to not be true. All right. There was going to be a meeting here in Ventura. We showed up to. Nobody was there. There was no meeting. And there was even a corresponding web page that the city had and suddenly wasn't there anymore, which tells me they got hacked, or something sketchy was going on there. I've seen stories out of some paper up the coast called The Acorn for the more conservative Simi Valley type area. And it was literally written by a robot. And I pointed that out. A person didn't write this. It doesn't even have the title of a person on there. These are just paragraphs stripped from other columns and stuff and put in all on the same page. So here John Oliver really talks about what's going on, what I've been seeing and sensing, and kind of brings it all together. And I can't help but jump in on some of this stuff. So to me, disaster is opportunity. So what it means is it's an opportunity to use the news for what we want to use it for, because they're stupid enough to go after clickbait. We all on the internet know how to play idiots that want to promote through clickbait. We know how to juggle them. Okay, you just use the clickbait back. You sucker them. They're looking for that big story, that big break. You give them a lie. You show up with some imposters like the yes men do, and they go tripping and falling because they're desperate to get that headline that's going to get them paid. Okay, but it's dangerous in the way that it allows local governments to become more corrupt, local city and state government, because now you don't have the watchdogs, the newspapers like Ventura County Star or other small-time papers for immediately sized city that would have normally been their own business and now are owned by a big corporation that has no fucking interest in, what the quality of life is here. They just want to sell shit. Okay. And we've all seen how the Ventura County Star here has changed since Gannett took it over. It stinks. It's either advertisements or police blotters or something that they promoted. But there's no news. There never really was anyway. But I mean, you're definitely not going to get anything now. So you have to turn to other papers. And they're basically robotically running these papers from bigger papers from like LA to the Chicago Tribune. So the people that are mostly funneling this information and getting it more, eyeballs, are not actually here and don't care. A lot of this just makes me think about, there's this movie where Kirk Douglas, where he literally fucking kills a guy who was trapped in a cave because he's trying to drum up the story and send it back to the newspapers in New York. Kirk Douglas. I gotta find out what the heck it's. It's like the big circus or something like that. And I'm not spelling that right, but whatever. Movies. He did so many great movies. Ace in the Hole. Ace in the Hole, 1951. Ace in the Hole, or AKA the Big Caravan. That's why I kept thinking it was a big circus. It marked a series of firsts, blah, blah, blah. The story is a biting examination of the seedy relationship between the press, the news it reports, and the manner in which it reports it. The film also shows how a gullible public can be manipulated by the press without consulting Wilder, Paramount Pictures executive, why Frank Freeman changed the title to The Big Caravan just prior to its release. Earlier television broadcasts retained that title, but when aired by Turner Classic Movies and when released by DVD by the something or other company, it reverted to the Ace in the Hole. So that's why it's hard to find this, because it goes by two different names. There's a couple of movies that are like that, but this one's more important because it really does kind of get you to question, holy shit, this is what the newspapers used to be like. There was a columnist stuck at some small paper in Arizona that wanted to drum up this big story and got a guy needlessly fucking killed to try to get the newspapers in New York to pay attention. Now that guy is not even going to be working at that paper in Arizona. The newspapers in New York are just going to drum it up from there, totally detached from any of the consequences. So let's take a look at John Oliver's take on a dystopic news media. So that's my show for Monday. I had a lot of good stories today, particularly knocking Dianne Feinstein and many of the arguments that the opponents, Prop 64, were going to pop up with at this time was very nice. It was nice to just, oh, really? Did you think that was going to work? Kabunk, on their face. Like, nope, nope, nope. We got keys to all those locks. Now we're going to open the treasure. You know, we've broken down all your barriers. We're at the boss battle now, and we're going to win. It's just a matter of beating down the boss, right? Then comes normalization and regulation. We can all go on with our lives. Perhaps we'll find out in 2105. Okay. This has not been a pleasant joint to smoke. This has been pretty fucking awful. I am not too proud of this right now. But it is medication, so it is what it is. I wish it was tastier and of better quality, perhaps in the future. I have noticed that my neighbor has perused my marijuana plants, which are huge right now. I also know another grower in his, or oh my God, he has colas on his that are like huge, sticking up in his backyard. And all kinds of workmen and stuff saw it, and nothing happened. You know, so the normalization is beginning to take hold here, and it's really nice because people are, it's like they notice and then they wonder is something going to happen and nothing happens, and you know, they're starting to realize you get UPS deliveries from computer companies and stuff, or a phone company or something like that sits on your doorstep, you worry somebody's going to rip it off. There's just as much money in that as in my backyard. So I mean, it happens, but on a huge level, and the more normalized it is, the less that it will occur. So any kind of problems, and really, obviously, uh, if everybody's looking out for your grow and everybody's on the same page, then the criminals have less chance to take hold. The police, the neighbors, and the grower, as we've seen in that one story. Then I call the police, they show up, and they take away bad guys. And those bad guys are taken off the street, and they are dangerous. Not low-level, non-violent drug offenders, but people that are willing to break onto your property and take and steal, you know, and maybe even be violent. You know, those dudes in that article were certainly armed, and that's a good bust for those cops. So why is that not okay for the police? Because there's no money in it. Because they're not robbing the store themselves like those guys. Now they're arresting the guys who are robbing the store. How does that get the money? It gets them notoriety. They're tough on crime. There's no money. See what I'm saying? Taxation will help us have better representation in this community. See? Okay, so I'll let you go, and I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully with some buds. I was disappointed not to be able to get some today, but I'm hoping tomorrow. Just a monetary thing right now. I see that T-Town Tim is going through shit. I am so sorry about that. That sucks balls. I can't believe that. People firing guns in his neighborhood. Yeah, we just had a Porsche crash into one of our buildings. I totally relate to what in the fuck is going on lately. To me, it just says we need this taxation so desperately because we need better policing that does not involve wasting your time going after people selling loose cigarettes or fucking smoking weed someplace in their car or whatever. What I need you to do is stop these crazy motherfuckers with guns and driving crazy in their cars. Chop chop. And I'm sorry that that isn't a big money maker for you, but that's what I think you're supposed to be doing, you know. All right, so I'll let you go and you stay high and goodbye. And I'm going to try. At least I didn't have to run a Dankrupt video or a scraping resin video because I don't like fucking running those. It's like, shame. All right, so say hi, goodbye, and take it easy. And oh, I love Mudflaps videos. I wanted to just say before I go, I've been sitting down and just enjoying your videos. They're so fun. You seem like such a really super sweet guy, and I love your tattoos. I think they're really cool. I really love my WeTube family. I think they're fun to watch, and you know, it's neat to share, and especially that we are across the world from each other is just so fucking cool. You know, it's cool. It's nice to be part of this future for as long as I'm going to be here. I hope I make it to 2005. I'm just not going to let go on that one article, man. That was too funny. From 2013 to 2105 to 20. It's like, what? You didn't watch my articles. You got to go back. One of them, at the study of how many people are smoking right now, had a misspelling error where they printed instead of 2015, 2105. I'm like, wow, Gallup poll can read polls in 2105. That's pretty good. So I'll let you go on that. Stop the presses! I have one more video that just popped up while I was rendering. I canceled. You gotta see this. In 1988, Michael Dukakis rode in a tank for a press opportunity. This famous image destroyed his presidential campaign. Today is August 8th, 2016, and Donald Trump has just achieved the same thing. His Dukakis moment, ladies and gentlemen. This was his big economic speech, and he fumbled it big time.
This tax will also end job-killing corporate inversions and cause trillions in new dollars and wealth to come pouring into our country. And, by the way, into titties like right here in Detroit.
Into titties, like right here in Detroit. Massive fumble.